Boker Tov. Today's daf is Daf Yomi in קידושין, as we learned for a Shalom Perlos Ben Rumen Yosef Shmuel Ben Chaim Michal. From the two dots, about 10 lines down on Daf Yomi. Mishnah said, how much when you count Shanisha with Kesef, it's Kesef Shtar. Obviously, the Shtar doesn't have to be worth anything, and Bia cannot be coined. You had the chart from last time? But the Shammai says, how much money is it? How much money or value of money do you have to give? How much does the ring have to be worth? So we all know Basil says it's a pruta, but Shammai precedes it by saying that it's a dinar. If you look at the chart, you'll see that the difference between a dinar and a pruta is substantial. A dinar, we're talking about a dinar tsuri is 192 prutas, and a pruta is like the smallest, like a penny, we call that, the smallest denomination. So, but Basil is the most makel. He says all you need is a pruta. That's good enough. You can get married with a pruta. Is it shav a pruta or a pruta itself? That's good enough. What Beis Shammai knows what we're going to be dealing with today. Tomorrow we'll talk about Basil, but today we're talking about Beis Shammai. Why does Beis Shammai say you need a dinner? So that's the question. So we're going to have four reasons that are offered for why Beis Shammai says you need a dinner. Why? According to Beis Shammai, according to Rav Meir's opinion is that a woman wouldn't give herself away for a pruta. That's ridiculous to assume that. And therefore, when the Torah said you have to give her kesef or shava kesef, it must mean at least a dinner. She's not going to give herself away, agree to be married for less than a dinner. But what do you mean? Are you saying it depends on the kind of woman? What about the daughters of Rav Yanai who held themselves to be in a higher status, right? The Kaptan of Shiur, they are so particularly about themselves. They wouldn't get married for tarkava, the dinri. Tarkava is we have that lashon a lot. It's an abbreviation for trei v'kav, like 2 and 1 kav, like 3 kav. It means usually 3 kav, but it means 3. The dinri, you need at least 3 dinners. So according to them, you're saying Beis Shammai says you can marry 1 dinner. According to these people, they wouldn't give themselves away for less than 3 dinners. Are you going to say also the pashta yada if she stuck her hand out, meaning if she went out with a guy and accepted קידושין kibla chadzuzah and she accepted 1 zuz? Notice the washing of dinner and zuz is interchangeable. Dinner and zuz is the same thing because you say you need 3 dinners, he says, and if she would accept 1 zuz, like dinner is like more official language, but in the common language, you say zuz, right? So, if she would accept 1 zuz, you say it's not a קידושין. In other words, Beis Shammai says you need a dinner. Why? Because the women are particular about themselves. So what are you saying? That these people who are very particular about themselves and they normally wouldn't get married for less than 3 dinners, are you going to say that if they accepted 1 dinner, they wouldn't be a קידושין? If she accepted it, she could agree to less. But the minimal, in other words, any Bas Yisrael would never accept less than 1 dinar. But if somebody wants more than that, okay, they could accept more. If they agreed for 1 dinner, okay, she accepted it. She could hold herself. She could agree not to get married for less than $1 million, right? If she says I'm not marrying for less than $1 million, that was her condition. But it's like the daughters of Rav Yanai would not accept it for less than 3 normally. I'm talking about the kashabah. Let's say they got married at night and he didn't say, it wasn't clear how much money. He handed her some money or shava kesef, she couldn't see how much it was. Then the minimum was dinner. Or she set up a shliach. She sent a shliach to accept קידושין for her, and she didn't say how much. That's Rashi. He didn't say how much you want. But normally the daughters of Yanai, they're always makbid on 3. Okay, so in the stam case, if they're makbid on 3, they wouldn't accept less than 3. But a regular girl would accept 1 dinner. But again, why not a pruta, which is only 192nd of a dinner? That no way they would accept less than a dinner because and apparently this is like a daraisa. I wish I mentioned it now is because we're going to see later shita of a different shita of reason daraisa drabanan. But here it's mashma that this is the general principle, and when the Torah says you mekadosh an issue with kesef, it must mean at least a dinner because that less than that they wouldn't accept. Now Rav Yosef offers a second reason. And we're going to see Rav Yosef's reason is going to be slugged up at the end, but this is how we're going to say Rav Yosef over Tamar Beis Shammai. Why does Beis Shammai say you need a dinner? Because Rav Ravasi is a famous call. Called Kesef or Torah, Kesef Tsuri. Whenever the Torah mentions the word Kesef, it means Kesef Tsuri, which is Tyrian money. Tyre is a city in Lebanon, right? In today's Lebanon. But that was the standard then. And when the Torah speaks about kesef, we're talking about kesef tzuri. V'shal divrayim, if it's a halacha min Torah, not min Torah, from the rabbis, it's not something in the Torah. We'll see there's many instances in the Torah says you have to pay X amount of kesef, chamishim kesef, shloshim kesef, mea kesef. So that in the Torah, we're talking about kesef tzuri. Now, okay, so what? Kesef tzuri, and says Rashi, and therefore there is no prutos in kesef tzuri. Kesef tzuri is silver money. A pruta is copper money. There is no such thing. So Rav Asi apparently is explaining, in other words, Rav Yosef is saying that the reason why Beis Shammai says you need a dinner is because you have to have something which has silver value to it. Silver value has silver. And there is no such thing, as Rashi is going to explain in a minute. But let's proceed the Gemara. So that if it's halacha d'Rabbanan, the Rabbanan say you should pay X amount for something. That's kesef medina, what they call provincial money. Provincial money, as we'll see, is 1/8 of tzuri. So, for example, when the Torah says shekel, in the rabbi's lashon, that's a sela, which is 4 zuz or 4 dinars. If you see that in the chart, that's ois gehalten, as we say in the chart. If you look at the shekel on the right side of the chart, and you look over zuz or dinar, you'll see there's 4 zuz in a dinar, 4 zuz or 4 dinars in a sela, which is a shekel. Mentioned when the Torah says shekel, it means what the rabbis call a sela tzuri, and that's 4 dinars to 1. Okay, that's fine. So when the Torah says kesef, that means kesef tzuri, which means it's at least we're talking about silver, silver money on the measure or the standard of tzuri, which is 8 times more than kesef medina. So a sela tzuri is 8 times a sela medina, which is also referred to in the chart, as we're going to mention later on. But what's this point over here with the dinner with Beis Shammai? Because since the Torah says kesef, it's got to be kesef tzuri. And Rashi says, right even where we are in Rashi, Beis Shammai says you can't talk about a pruta. Why? The fishi shenachoshet, that's made out of copper. Over tzuri, in Tyre, with tzuri matbeah shenachoshet leka, there is no such thing as copper coinage. So when the Torah says kesef, Rav Asi says whenever it says kesef, it means silver coins on the standard of kesef tzuri, and there is no pruta there. There is no pruta there. And קידושין kesef ksiv. Rashi goes on. Once you're not talking about pruta, I'm immediately chashivas by ukmi adiner kilakaman. Even though, as we'll see, if you look at the chart, you'll see that a dinar, which is the the 5th row from the top of the page from pruta, the 6th row, the dinar is equal to 6 ma'ah. If you look in matbeah shel kesef, 6 ma'ah. So there is a ma'ah, which is a 1/6 of a dinar. It's also called shtus, which is a 1/6, or a danka, which is the same thing, or geira. So there is a smaller silver coin, right? He says it's got to be a silver coinage of tzuri. Okay, so you could have had a ma, but once you leave, once you're not talking about prutas anymore, they give you a dinner which is considered something choshev. That's how Rav Yosef brings down Rav Asi's shita. But now, before we even get it further into the other shitas, the Gemara says, "What do you mean? You think you can apply Rav Asi's idea of Rav Asi's whenever the Torah says kesef, means kesef tzuri. If it's a rabbi, if the rabbis instituted or gave a decree that you should pay X amount, as we'll see their cases later on, that's kesef medina, that's provincial coinage, which is 1/8 of the value. So a sela medina is 1/8 of a sela tzuri, and a dinar medina is equal to an 1/8 of a dinar tzuri. As we'll see, we're going to explain all those things soon. Okay, Guf Amar Vina Barab. That's the smallest amount. How do you make change on a penny? Now, you're bringing up a good point. How do you make change? We're going to talk about that. Can you make? You can't make change for less than a pruta. Can I? If I can tell you,
smallest amount.
No. Oh no. We're not talking about that. She doesn't have to give him change. You're saying that the smallest amount of kesef tzuri the smallest amount of kesef tzuri technically is a ma'ah, because you'll see in the chart, dinar is not the smallest one. There's 6 ma'ah in a dinar, so it's not the smallest amount. But how do you make change with it? You make change with copper coins. They have copper coins. We're just saying when the Torah says kesef, Rav Asi saying at this point that it means kesef. It's got to be silver. It's got to be kesef tzuri. Okay. Okay, we're going to analyze what Ravasi said now. The klala, is that a general principle? Is it really true whenever the Torah says kesef, it's got to be this silver coinage of Tyre? Tana. What about Tana? We all know there's halacha mud mixas, right? We're going to have the Baba soon after this Masechet. What does mud mixas? If I say you owe me $100 and you only owe me 50, you got to swear on the other. You admit that you owe me 50, you got to swear on the other 50. That's learned out from a pasuk. He didn't sharei kesef lishmor. It says ki huzeh. So that's how much has to. What is the claim? What is the claim and the counterclaim? Right, Tana, which is a claim that said ki didn't sharei kesef lishmor, but it's not. Shvur sadan. When do you have to make this shvur? This shvur you have to swear. Men, if I deny the whole thing, Torah. If I say you owe $100, or if you say I owe you $100, and I deny the whole thing, Torah, you don't have to swear. We admit Rabbanan. This is the shvur says it's Raisa. This one of the shvur. There are other shvurs. There's shvurs that you say if you if you for other reasons, right? Many other shvuos, right? There's many other shvuos we'll talk about. The Edom have to make a shvuah, all kinds of shvuos. But shvuos adayonim, what is the shvuos that we're talking about? Hatan shtei kesef. The claim has to be at least 2 kesef, which will mean, as Rashi explains, the shtei ma'os kesef. 2 ma'a. Again, ma'a is the 1/6 of a dinar. Shtei ma'os kesef. V'haudah sheva pruta. The only proof. There's a machlokes about this. Is bringing Shmuel Shita. Rav Shita is that no, even that the counterclaim has to be 2 kesef. But okay, the way we read our Gemara, it's bringing down Shmuel Shita. That what's the motive that makes us? The claim must be at least 2 ma'a of kesef. The Gemara doesn't say here ma'a, but Rashi tells us it's shtei ma'os kesef. Again, shtei ma'os kesef, which is 1/3 of a dinar, right? Because we said there's 6 ma'a in a dinar. Okay. So where do you get the shtei from? Now, I understand. Take a look at Rashi. Rashi says, okay, the question over here is, where does he get the 2 cause? I feel low cover ela pruta. You only have to claim 2. You have to claim 2 ma, and the counter can claim even a pruta, right? 2 ma. Now, ma is a 1/6 of a dinar, so we're talking about many prutas in there. Says Rashi, 4 lines into the narrow lines. Rashi, why? Because we're not talking about dafke kesef, ella amona be'alma kappa. It's some money at all. Kilo pirish kama, lo masr kas lo chacham, lo kimlo rabban, and lashbui basar machat varan said you have to have at least 2 kesef. Dikra dafke kesef nehi de ma hi ma be'a pchusa shabatsuri. And ma here, ma is the smallest silver money in Surah, as you see that on the chart. The smallest one is one. There's no prutas or isars or punyons in silver. Right, where do you get 2 from? His question over here is, where do you get 2 from? If you say kesef means kesef tsuri, okay, it doesn't have to be a dinner. We're not talking about Beis Shammai over here getting married and you have to have at least a dinner because it's not a prut anymore. So you give a chashuv, you make something more chashuv, you make a dinner. But if it means kesef tsuri, why did he get 2 ma over here? Where'd you get 2 ma from? If it would be 1 ma, okay, ma is the smallest suri kesef. That I would understand. Where'd you get 2 from? 2 must tell you that the rabbis decided, something chashuv, you have to have 2. So where do you get that from? If kesef always means mana kesef tsuri, so why over here? So why'd you get? What's the point of 2? 2 must be something that the rabbis made up. The worse than the hasam do me to kalim, because it says kiten ish areo kesef o kalim, multiple ma kalim shnayim. Af kesef shnayim, that's where they got it from. You're right. Kesef can normally be any silver coinage from Suri, which could be a ma, or it could be a dinner, or it could be a sella, could be more, whatever, but it's got to be kesef Suri. But over here, since it says kalim, so we says you have to have 2. So instead of 1 ma, you have 2 kesef. Af kesef shnayim, ma kesef davachashiv, just like kesef means money, which is something of value. Af kam davachashiv, and Rashi says, this long toast over here disagrees with Rashi and all the different cheetahs about that, but he says it can't be something like, I claim Yomi 2 little needles. Needles was like the simplest kli that you could find, the cheapest thing. I claim Yomi 2 needles, and you say you only 1 needle. So over there, you're going to have to make a shvuah. No, there's a sheet that says, yes, he excludes from that. Okay, so that's his answer. So we're still trying to prove or disprove Ravasi. Ravasi says, whenever it says kesef in the Torah, it means Tyrian silver coinage. Okay, is that really true? Or a meiser? What if meiser says it's kesef b'yadcha, and you should tie up the money in your hand? What are we talking about, meiser? You have a field in Haifa. You have to bring meiser sheni to Yerushalayim, right? So what do? but you got all that food, so you change it into money. V'tman haporet selling me mos meiser sheni. If you change your copper coinage from prutas into silver coinage from ma'os meiser sheni. Wait a minute, the pasuk says sarto hakesef. Tie up the money and bring it up to Yerushalayim, right? Tie up the money. How could the money be prutas? Kesef, you just said, means always silver coinage, silver Tyrian coinage. How could it be prutas? You say, if you take your prutas and you turn them into a sella, what's the halacha? You know, how much you have to do. There's a machlokas about that too. But our issue is that, you see, you can do prutas. The answer is there. It says sarta ha-kesef. Kesef ha-kesef riba. Yes, normally, so Rav Asi will say, normally kesef means only silver, kesef suri. But over there it says ha-kesef to include even copper coinage. Okay, what about hegdish? Hegdish nasata ha-kesef become low. Give the money. Amar Shmuel hegdish shavamana shechila shavapruta mechulol. When it comes to hegdish, there is no lacha of onah. What is onah? Fraudulent, right? You can't cheat somebody. If manufacturer's suggested retail for the car is 200,000 shekels and you charge them 1,000,000 shekels, the deal's off, right? Not so when it comes to hegdish. If you're makdish, let's say, some wood, and you want to redeem it, the wood is worth $1,000, and you want to redeem it for a pruta, it's really done. When it comes to hegdish, there is no such thing. Even though you shouldn't cheat hegdish, but it's done. V'amar hegdish shava mana shechila shava pruta. Even if you did it on pruta mechulul, it's considered redeemed. It's redeemed. So here it says v'nasan hakesef akamlo. It says hakesef akamlo, and it works for pruta. Asamnami kesef yolaf mi meiser. It's one of meiser. It doesn't say based on hakesef, kesef hakesef, but he said gzeira shava. Once you learn meiser, could be with the shava pruta, right? Because hakesef. Here also you learn how hektish from meiser. Okay. All right, so you've answered all these cases, but still we're bothered by this idea that Rav Asi says anytime the Torah means kesef, it's got to be kesef, so it's got to be silver coinage. You cannot have anything less. You can't have copper coinage. What about Kedusha Isha, or our own topic in this Masechet? All right, Kedusha Isha, we learn, how do we know that Kedusha Isha works? That you Makadosh Isha with kesef says, Isha, like we had before. You learn from Kicha said, and from Yotzachina Mein Kasef, from the combination of those two, we explain, but the basic idea is Kichem Se'efron. Utzanan, Beisil Omer, Pruta, B'Shava Pruta. Wait a minute. Beisil learns the Bar Plukta, Beishamir is Beisil, as it usually is, and he says it's a Pruta. Yeah, but Kichem Se'efron, there it says Kesef, Nasati Kesef Kach Mimeni. So if kesef means always silver, kesef suri, how could Beisil say that it's only a pruta? Are you going to tell me name Rav Asi don't make a Beishamai? Are you going to tell me that Rav Asi goes like Beishamai against Beisil? That's a strange thing. We always go like Beisil. Ella, we're going to change what Rav Asi said. He doesn't say that every time the Torah says kesef, it means silver Tyrian coinage. Eliyid Marhachi, Marmabir Rav Asi, called kesef katsuv ha'omer b'Torah. When the Torah gives a fixed amount, when it tells you have to give X amount of money, kesef tzuri, that's kesef tzuri b'shel devrayim. If it's only a fixed amount that the rabbi said, that could be kesef medina, which is an eighth of the kesef tzuri value. What do we mean? So therefore, Rav Asi can't be an answer to Beis Shammai over here, because the Torah doesn't say how much money you have to give to Mary and Isha. Does the Torah say specifically how much kesef? We learn out kesef means staff, and you have to give money. And we have to give money. Didn't say. Yeah, right. Doesn't say how much. That's not part of the Gzeira Shava, right? That's part of the good point. Not part of the Gzeira Shava. It doesn't say how much. It says kesef. So therefore, like Rashi says, below I rebay Rav Asi klal. Rav Asi is not talking about our case. Rav Asi is talking about when the Torah says a specific amount, then it's got to be kesef tzuri. Not when the Torah just says tam kesef. So Mike Mashmalan. What's the chiddush in that Tanena? We learn chamesh lam shel ben, the 5 selah that you need to be part of ben. Notice there's selah. The Torah says chamesh shkalim, and selah is a lashon of chachamim for the equivalent of the shekel in the Torah, which is 4 zuz. Chamesh lam shel ben, right? Shloshim shel eved, or the 30 that you pay if your ox gored and killed an eved Kanani, or chameshim shel onas for shel mafata. Onas mafata under slightly different conditions pay 50 shekels each. Or Me'eshel Motzi Shema. Motzi Shema we mentioned the other day, right? If he marries her and claims that she wasn't a virgin, and she indeed was, so you have to pay 100 shekels. Kulam shekel hakodesh b'manat suri, right? They all have to pay the shekel hakodesh, right? Shekel hakodesh But monatsuri, what do you mean by monatsuri? A monatsuri, which is a selatsuri. If you look at the chart, a mana is 100 zuz or 100 dinars, right? Which is 25 shekels, right? Because a shekel is the equivalent. A shekel in the Torah is the equivalent of a selah, right? And a shekel, there's four zuz in a shekel, 4 zuz in a shekel, and 100 zuz is moneh. So if you say that a shekel is 4 zuz and 100 zuz is a moneh, so that's the equivalent. There's 25 shekels in a moneh. When it talks about moneh, it's always 100. It's 100 zuz. Okay, so kum b'shekel hakodesh moneh. So we already know that already. So what's Rav Asi teaching me when the Torah says a specific amount, 5, 30, 50, 100, that it's monatsuri? We already know that it's a favor shabraisa. That's the chiddush. They tell you that when the rabbis made up an amount, how much you have to pay, how much they fined you for a specific action, that's only the money which is an eighth. It's Kesef Medina, which is an eighth of tsuri, the lotan. That you don't have it in the Mishnah. That why the Tanya, right? The Tanya, because the Brisa says, if you hit your neighbor, you hit your friend near his ear, right? That doesn't mean you blow him. Does it mean you hit him near his ear and you have embarrassed him? How much should you pay? No simoy selah. The Mishnah, the Brisa just says you give him a selah. Give him a selah. Now, how much is that? Doesn't say. But Rav Asi's explanation says, but since this is a halacha midrabanan, the Torah doesn't say how much you pay for embarrassing that. That's halacha midrabayim. That's kesef medina. So Rav Asi's telling you, lo tema my selah arba zuzay. A selah is not 4 zuz, which is a selah of the Torah, which is 4 zuz. A shekel in the Torah, which is the selah that the rabbis talk about, the selah too, which is 4 zuz. Elamai selah palga de zuzah. What's an eighth of 4 zuz? Half a zuz, right? Right? An eighth of that is my selah. Palga de zuzah. The core of the palga, people call a half a zuz is stira. And that we also have, if you look on the chart on a fifth row, is an astira, which is a selah medina. We just said if you hit him on his face and you embarrass him, you pay him a selah medina, which is also called an astira, which is, if you look at the chart, goes on to say what? That's 3 ma, which is a half a zuz, because there's 6 ma in a zuz. So that's what he means. You pay him a half a zuz suri, which is a half a zuz suri, which is 4 zuz. It's a half a zuz suri, which is called an estira. It's a half a zuz. So when he says you pay selah, that's not a real selah tsuri, but it's rather a selah medina, as that fifth row shows. A estira and a selah medina are synonymous. Okay, so that's what. Pardon. Stira. Yeah. That's why it's called a stira. Could be. Stira is Hebrew, or it's Aramaic, probably. Yeah, it's stira. Huh? It's Hebrew. Maybe, but a lot of the Hebrew words that come from the Aramaic, you might be right. Maybe that's why they call it stira. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So far, and just to keep track here. So Rav Asi's reason falls off. What's the reason why Beis Shammai says you need a dinner? So the first reason we brought down was Jay says, you know what? Because a Jewish girl is never going to give herself up for less than a dinner. She's not going to do it. So that's like it's understood the Torah. It's dinners. It's because it doesn't make sense. A dinner is the minimal that she would give herself up for, and it's mashna. It's not a drabban. It's mashna. That's the right. The Torah says kesef. She's not going to give herself for less than a dinner. And that's the second reason, Rav Asi, that since the Torah says kesef, it means such and such and such and such. It's got to be seltzur. That reason falls off because Rav Asi is not talking about unspecified amounts of kesef. He's only talking about specified amounts, and the marriage is an unspecified amount because we're not kicha we stay up from. Okay, and a third reason. So the second reason falls away. Different reason. The pasuk says. Now we're going to get to this in a couple days actually. Shabbos, we're going to start with this about an eved ivri or an amma ivriya. An eved ivri. If you buy an eved kanani, you own him forever. An eved ivri or an amma ivriya can buy themselves out with whichever sale money remains. So, for example, if you bought an amma ivriya for 6 shekels, let's say. Right, you bought her from her father she has to be underage, under 12 years old, and she worked for you for 2 years. She's got 4 shekels remaining in the bank, so to speak. So if she can come up with 4 shekels, she can buy herself out. I worked for you for 2 years, 4 years remaining, right? So I can buy myself 4 shekels. So that's how's that learn now? Omakra of a half day, and you redeem her What do you mean you have to? It should say beniftis if she's redeemed. And same thing for an Ebed Ivri. She can deduct from her pidyon and go out that way. In other words, she can deduct from whatever amount. You prorate her selling price or the Ebed Ivri selling price over the years. Everybody goes, or number goes out with 6 years, or with Yovel, right? A number also goes out when she's 12 years old automatically. And if he goes out with that, or he can buy himself out with whatever is remaining, if he can come up with the money. So V'hafte, so it's like V'hafte, if we just say Niftis, it says V'hafte, you have to help them get out, meaning you deduct from what they've worked so far, and whatever. You can't say I bought you for $6. If you buy a house for for $100 and you want to sell later on, you can still demand $100. But when you buy a girl for $6 and she worked for 2 years, she could say, I want to buy myself out for the remaining 4 years. You prorate it. That's from Bahafte, because you help her go out that way. You help her redeem herself by deducting. Now, now we're talking about an Amavriya now. We're not talking about a regular married woman, but we're going to compare the two, because an Amavriya you can marry also. That's called Yiud. You can designate. You or your son can marry her. And you can marry her with whatever money is remaining, right? Let's say that case where you bought her for 6 shekels, 2 years go by, she's got 4 shekels left to work off, right? But you could say, I want to marry you with that 4 shekels, right? I owe you 4 shekels right now. I can marry you with those 4 shekels. You could do that. So if you bought, you gave on her, you paid her father a dinner for her, and the regard also you can deduct whatever's remaining, because at dinner you can deduct ad pruta. How many prutas are there in a dinner? As we looked at the chart, there's 192 prutas in a dinner, right? 192 prutas in a dinner. So there's plenty to deduct. Eliyamet, you have a pruta. If you bought her for a pruta, like you say, you can't make change from a pruta, Avram, right? If you bought her for a pruta, how can you deduct? There's nothing smaller than that. So it must be, so now we're talking about Amavriya. It must be that an Amavriya has to be bought for more than a pruta. Okay. So maybe 2 prutas. We'll get to that too. But first he says, here's a proof that it can't be a pruta. That an Amavriya must be bought for more than a pruta. Why? Because otherwise, how can you deduct? You'll tell me, before we get to the proof of how to compare it to a woman, and the Gemara says, wait a minute, maybe this is what Hashem told us. If you bought her for a dinner, then you can take her out pruta. You can deduct it, and she can redeem herself back until the pruta. But if you only bought her for a pruta, she can't deduct anything. If you bought her for a pruta for 6 years, you know what? She can't. There's no change. You can't deduct anything. She can't deduct herself. She says, no, you owe me for the whole time. There's nothing to deduct. Maybe that's Mrs. Losak. You can't say that. Do me the Yiyud. Why? Because part of the process of Amavriya is designating her as a wife. And by Yiyud, you could say, whatever money is remaining, or immediately you can marry her after, whatever is remaining, I'm marrying you with that money. Marrying you with that money. You don't owe me anything. He's marrying her. Pardon? For an Amavriya. That's what we're saying. Here we're saying it must be a dinner. Now, why dinner? We'll get to that. But we've just proved that it can't be a pruta. Because if it's a pruta, there's no way for him to, there's no way for her to buy herself out. So, but maybe she can't buy herself out. No, it can't. It doesn't work that way. You can't say that. It's got to be like Yiyud. My Yiyud afagav diboim yad miliyad. Yiyud means you designate her as a wife with whatever money is remaining, right? The money that she worked off already, that's gone. It's hers. She worked herself off. Question is, there's $4 remaining to her. That with that money, you could say 4 shekels, whatever you bought her for, whatever's remaining, you can marry her. Why? Even though by Yiyud, even though if he wants to, he can marry her. If he wants to, he doesn't have to marry her. If he can't be miyayid her, it's not a good sale. Rashi gives a perfect example. Let's say a man wants to sell his daughter. I'll give you a strange example. A man's got a son who's 25 years old. He's got his own business. And he says, you know what? I'll sell you my young girl here. She happens to be your sister. She's your sister. I'll sell you your sister for 6 years or up until she's bat mitzvah. Is that a good sale? No. You know why? Because the son can't marry her. And if he can't marry her, it's not a sale. In other words, even though the owner of this whoever buys her doesn't have to marry her, right? Afagav says the Gemara top line. The boy miyayid, the boy lo miyayid. If he wants to, he could have. If he can't, if he's not capable of miyayid her, lav is ginasvina. And over here, going back to the case of if you bought her for a pruta, there's no way to be mi'ayir. There's nothing remaining. There's nothing to deduct from. So there's no way to marry her, and therefore, it's not a good sale. So that's what he says. He says, well, how do you know? You have to buy it for more than a pruta, because otherwise there's nothing to deduct. Well, maybe if there's nothing to deduct, you can't. So she can't buy herself back. No, it doesn't work that way. It's just like he, even though he doesn't have to marry her, but if he can't marry her for some reason, like it's an incestual marriage, or over here where there'd be nothing to deduct, it's not a good sale. Hachanami, just like where you can't marry her, it's not a valid sale. If you can't deduct, well, obviously it's not a good sale. So okay, that's his Amavriya. What does it have to do with our Gemara? Beis Shammai is talking about getting married. The Kedusha Isha LeBeis Shammai nafkami Amavriya. Beis Shammai says, fine, just like Amavriya marrying the Garbina and Kedusha Yud, an Amavriya you're buying as a slave, but it's also like a marriage because you can marry her. If you marry her, she's your wife for all time, forever until you give her again, until you die. No, so it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way because here it's v'hafte, because we learn out, it says v'hafte melamed shemagash b'dyana v'yotza, shemagash b'dyana v'yotza, and also like if he wants to be mi'ayir, is to mi'ayir with kesef. That's a good question. A good question. Why can't you marry her with bia? Right? Why can't you mikadosh with bia?
Give her different money.
Yeah.
He wants to do that.
Right. So it doesn't work that way, right? Because it says, Rashi says, "Im yomelo haret miuedesli b'mashi yesh li olecha." Right. It could be that he could marry her with other money, right? But she doesn't really own the other money at this point. She's still a ketana, and just right. No, the father has no rishus over her. Once he sold her, he has no rishus over her to marry her off again. So therefore, that money wouldn't work. The only way it would work was with the money that we're going to talk about that in the next few days. But it doesn't work with bia. You can't marry her. I don't think you can marry her with bia. Maybe we'll see the Gemara. Maybe there's some exception. I don't know. But right. And she would have to accept it, and she's a ketana. Maybe it wouldn't work that way. It only works apparently with the kesef yiyah, with this megar velach. It's a good question. So we'll see. The Gemara will answer that in the next few days. Why would that work? So the point is, you have to have that ability to do it. You have to have the ability to be miyayir. Imo asher lo yada v'hefta. If he marries her with money that's remaining there, you don't need other money, right? Right, and so the point is you have to have that ability. Okay, so once you know that an Amavriya cannot be married off for less than a pruta, so we learn the same thing. Just like Amavriya, where you have Kedusha Yiyud, it's really a Kedushin. This is also Kedushin mission. Ma'amavriya b'pruta lo mikne. Just like an Amavriya cannot be acquired for a pruta, right? Because lo mikne. Afisha b'pruta lo mikdasha. An Amavriya cannot be acquired for a pruta because she has to be sold for more than a pruta, as we just said. The sale has to be for more than a pruta, otherwise there's nothing to deduct. So just like she can't be she can't be sold, she can't be married for a pruta. So a woman also is not going to be kapsha pruta. So okay, fine, you've proven that you can't be a pruta. Get the dinner, so make it more than a pruta. Make a half a dinner. What's a half a dinner in prutas? 96, right? 96 prutas. A dinner is 192 prutas. Married for 96 prutas. Get the dinner. Shtei prutas, or even 2 prutas. 2 prutas is enough. You marry her, you sell her for 2 prutas, right? When you sold the Amavriya. And you have to be able to deduct. Okay, because you can deduct down to a pruta. But pardon?
Shouldn't it be 6?
6 what? Why?
Well, 6 years.
No. It could be a pruta for 2 prutas for 6 years. 1 pruta for 3 years. The other is that you don't have to. But the point is to say minimum. It could be. It could be 6, but it could even be 2. That's the question. Maybe it's a half a dinner or even less than that. Not 96 prutas, even 2 prutas, as long as there's something to deduct. Once you took her out of the stage of a pruta, we put her on a dinner, and Rashi says something chashiv. Alma chashivusa boy ukma dinner the chashiv. In other words, a pruta is not chashiv. Once you say it can't be a pruta, right? So because it learned off Amavriya can't be a pruta, so you put on some chashiv, which is a dinner. Okay, that's the third reason. That's Rish Lakish's reason.
This is simply a drabanan, says Rashi. Yeah, Rashi says the rabbi said, it's after what's a pruta. That's it's got to be something more chashiv, and that's Rashi says liktos b'davar mu'at midrabananu to come lebeshamai after rabbanan liktushin aplusim midinner. The rabbi said less than a dir is not chashiv. It's not chashiv at all. We don't need to be like hefker. You get a girl for such a small amount. A dinner is already something chashiv compared at least to a pruta. It's chashiv, right? Liktos b'davar mu'at rabbanan to come lebeshamai after rabbanan liktushin aplusim midinner. From here, it's mashma from Rashi. I would say that the other reasons are daraisa, even though we just said that because here he says this is drabanan. The other reasons are daraisa. Whatever they are. The second reason Ravasi fell away. The first reason of Rav Zera, a girl's makbid, she's never going to give herself over dinner. That's mashma that midaraisa. It's not a kedushin. Nobody would give themselves over. There are people like Rav Yani's daughters who wouldn't even do for less than 3 dinners. But Shlakish reason is also based on Haftei that you have to redeem an Amavriya, and you learn a Kedusha from Amavriya. Amavriya cannot be cannot be a pruta, as we said. There's nothing to deduct, so it's got to be more than that. You have to buy an Amavriya. A mashma's got to be at least for 2 prutas, right? It's mashma. Yeah, if it's a dinner, it's something to deduct from. But if it's a pruta, it's nothing to deduct from. So once you say that, and we're jumping for Amavriya's mashma, could really be 2 prutas because there's something left remain. But then marrying her requires at least a dinner, so it's mashma that that it's got to be at least something you could deduct from, and it's got to be capable. He's got to be able to marry her off with whatever's remaining right there. So even if you marry her for a dinner, if you bought her for a dinner, you can deduct from that and buy her for 100 prutas or 50 prutas or whatever's remaining in the 6-year process or until Yovel, however it's prorated. So it's mashma that for marrying her for Yiyud, you wouldn't really need a full dinner. But when it comes to, we learn out from Isha from Amavriya that it's not a pruta. Ma Amavriya but pruta lo mikne. It does say Ma Amavriya's got to be a dinner because we didn't really say Amavriya's got to be a dinner. It's got to be something more than a pruta. But we know that just Amavriya is not with a pruta. Isha also would not be less than a pruta. Once you know less than a pruta, we rack it up to a full dinner. But it's mashma. It's also a doraisa. It's based on the fact that it's at least a doraisa. You can't have a pruta. This we say that it's got to be a dinner already because once you leave a pruta, you go to something chashuv, and that's a dinner. So we have 3 reasons at the end of the day why it's got to be a dinner and not a pruta.
Beit Shammai's shita exclude shtar as well.
No. What do you mean? Shtaris does not be worth anything.
That's exactly
right.
She wouldn't give herself for a pruta,
but
give herself for a shtar.
Right. The answer is when it comes to money, it's money, shtar, and bia.
So bia also have other.
Okay.
Right?
No, but bia would also work. When I Torah bia works, when I Torah shtar works, that's based on a pasuk. Based on a pasuk.
Interesting thing.
Right. Well, that's what we paskin like Beis Hillel. We paskin like Beis Hillel, not like Beis Shammai. Okay. Pick it up from here tomorrow.